All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. Now, here again, good evening, everyone. It's a wonderful Tuesday today, and I am really glad to see you all here for our fifth lecture on conversational English. I hope you all had a relaxing and productive day yesterday. We are here and ready to continue building on the great foundation we laid in our last sessions. So, for our previous lectures, we spent a lot of time on something very specific. We learned many different ways to say hello and, of course, practicing them in different situations. We talked about formal greetings for the workplace, casual greetings for friends, and special phrases for phone calls and online meetings. I hope you have all had a chance to try some of these out, even if it's just in your head. Remember, all that practice with specific greetings is to get you comfortable with the very first step of any conversation. Okay? Now, for today, we are going to take a small step back and look at the bigger picture. Instead of focusing on just one or two specific phrases, we are going to look at the general rules or guidelines that make any conversation in English flow smoothly and naturally. So you can think of it like this. If the greetings were the first bricks for building a house, what we are going to talk about today are the basic, simple instructions for putting all the bricks together correctly. Those are rules. Now, this is a very important lecture because it will help you understand how to keep a conversation going no matter what phrases you already know. Okay? It's not just about what you say here, but it is also about how you act and, of course, how you interact when you are talking with someone. So, we will explore some simple but powerful ideas that will make your English conversations feel less like a language test and more like a natural and also an enjoyable chat. The goal today is to give you the confidence to not just start a conversation, but to continue it and participate actively. These aren't really just rules that you need to memorize, like in a grammar book. Instead, they are more like common sense habits that native English speakers use every day. So, by understanding them, you will be able to listen better, you'll be able to respond more appropriately, and of course, you will be able to contribute your own ideas with more confidence. Okay? So, I'm really excited to dive into this topic with you. These are the kind of things that I learned from my own English language teaching studies and from observing many conversations so far. They are practical tips that will really make a difference. So, let's get ready and start with our lesson goals here. Okay, please take a good look at this slide. Remember, we set out with three main goals for our first few lessons, or for the lessons that we will be having under conversational English, and that is to use basic greetings and introduction phrases to respond politely and naturally to personal questions and to introduce yourself. Okay, and of course, guess what? We have successfully covered so much of this already. We have learned all about standard and polite greetings like good morning, friendly and casual ones like hey, what's up? And of course, warm and welcoming phrases like long time no see. We even practiced how to use these in different situations, like at a food stall, during a casual catch up, or in a workplace setting. We also looked at how to introduce ourselves to new people, to new people. So we've done a fantastic job of building a strong vocabulary of phrases for greetings and introductions. All right, everyone. As I said, today we are going to focus on the bigger picture of conversational English. I have put together a list of some of the most important general rules or guidelines that will help you in almost any conversation. These are just habits of good communicators. Okay, take a look at this list. It says here rules at the top, and of course, there are 10 of them. We are not going to just read them, we're going to talk about each one and see how they connect to the conversations we have already practiced. This will help you see how these rules are used in real life. But of course, this is just, a general view of all the rules that will be discussed or we will be tackling for today's session. And there are 10 rules. These are: first, be friendly and approachable. Second, start with a greeting. Third, introduce yourself clearly. Fourth, show interest in the other person. Fifth, keep it simple and natural. Sixth, know when to end the conversation. Seventh, adapt to the setting. Eighth, practice active listening. Ninth, be mindful of cultural differences. And 10, stay positive and confident. Now, if you've just read these rules with me, or if not, you have listened what I've mentioned or what I've read about the rules, it's very simple to really ingest into your minds because it just uses simple words like the name itself. It is already understandable, but of course it is very important that we explain on why these rules are rules for conversational English. Okay, of course we will start with the first rule. Let's take a closer look at our very first general rule for good conversations, which is on be friendly and approachable. Now, this is not just a rule for conversation, but really a rule for all social interactions that you will be having. It is like the foundation for everything else we are going to talk about today. So this point here, it is so important that we need to spend some extra time on it. Here, being friendly and approachable is all about what you do. It is how your body acts. It is the attitude you have before you even open your mouth to speak. So your body language can tell a person if you are open to a conversation even from afar away. So let's look at some key things that help you with this. First, smile and maintain open body language. Now, a smile is a powerful tool because it is a universal sign of friendliness and kindness. When you smile, you immediately tell the other person, I am a friendly person, and of course, I am happy to be here. It shows that you are implying that. So it makes you look welcoming, it makes you look easy to talk to. Now, open body language. This one, let me highlight it for you. Open body language. It means that your body is open, not closed off. Okay? You should not cross your arms over your chest because this can make you look defensive or even uninterested. It's better to keep your arms relaxed at your sides or, use them to gesture while you talk to the other person. Also, avoid putting your hands in your pockets. Keep your body facing the person you want to talk to. So this shows that you are comfortable and that you are open to a chat for them. So in our conversation example from the school orientation last meeting yesterday, we can imagine that Lara had open body language when she approached Jonas, which made it easy for him to reply. Okay? Now next, use a warm tone and friendly eye contact. Now, your tone of voice is how your words sound. So a warm tone here, it means that it is soft and that it is friendly, not cold or harsh. Okay, it's a tone that makes people feel safe and welcome. So friendly eye contact means looking at the person's eyes when you talk to them, but you are not really staring. You can look at them for a few seconds, then look away, and then look back. Okay, so this shows you are engaged and of course that you are listening. In our dialogue from food stall, like last meeting, when Anne said, I am Anne, she introduces herself by saying her name. We can imagine she used a warm tone and looked Jake in the eye. This is what made the conversation continue so naturally. Finally, avoid distracting behaviors like fidgeting, crossing arms. Yeah, fidgeting and crossing arms. Here, fidgeting means we understand that fidgeting is moving your hands or your feet a lot because you are kind of nervous, or if not nervous, it's just how you act. Um, it is done like tapping your fingers on a table or constantly shifting your weight from one foot to the other. These actions can send the wrong signal and make the other person think that you don't want to talk to them. So other distracting behaviors could be looking at your phone while someone is talking or looking at the ground. By avoiding these things, you show that you are calm, you are confident, and that you are ready for a meaningful conversation with the other person. Okay? Now let's look at some real life examples of this. Imagine you are waiting at a cafe. A simple, gentle smile and a question like, "Hi, are you in the queue too?" This is a perfect way to start a conversation. It is exactly like our example at the food stall where one person asked, "Is this a line for jacket potatoes?" In both cases, you start, sorry for that. You start with a friendly attitude and, of course, a simple question about a shared situation. This is a low pressure way to start a conversation with a stranger because it is not about them personally, it is about the shared experience. Okay, here's another example. Imagine you are waiting for public transport and another person is waiting nearby. You can smile gently, you can stand with your arms at your sides, and then maybe ask them a question. You can ask them, does the bus for downtown stop here? Something like that, a confirmation or a clarification. This follows the exact same principles. You can ask that with a smile, with sorry for that, with an open body language, and of course, a simple question. The simple question that you are going to ask to them about, especially if it's a shared situation. This is just, a very natural way to be friendly and approachable. And it often leads to a nice short conversation while you wait. So remember that this first rule is about the impression you make with your attitude and your body. It's the foundation of a good conversation because it is how you signal to people that it is okay to talk to you. So the words you say are really important. It is how you signal to people that it's okay to talk to you, okay? But of course, here it is also the way you present yourself. We are off to a great start now that we know how to be friendly and approachable. What do you think is the next logical step in this conversation? Of course, you start with a greeting, and we have already learned so much about that. Let's keep going and see how all these rules connect to each other. So we've established that the first step to a good conversation is to be friendly and approachable. First rule: you've given a good signal with a smile and open body language. That's what it is. So the next logical thing to do, of course, should always we should always we should always try to greet the person or people you want to talk to. This is a very important rule because it is the official start of the conversation. Okay, here there are 3 bullet points. First is that we greet naturally. We spend a lot of time on this in our first few lessons, learning many different phrases for many different situations. For example, we learn greetings like hello, hi, good afternoon, which are always safe to use. Hi and hello, these are always safe to use. We also have the time specific greetings like good evening, good afternoon, good morning, which is of course perfect for our class right now. Good evening. With friends, we learned that we can say things like hey, or how's it going. So using a greeting you are comfortable with makes you sound more confident. The most important thing here is just to simply say something to start. So don't worry about being perfect. Just open your mouth and begin. Okay? Now, this connects to our next main point, which is to adjust your greeting based on the setting. This is a rule we've already learned in detail. For example, if you are at a work event, a formal greeting like maybe good evening, it is a great choice. In our workplace dialogue, the conversation started with a polite good morning because it was a professional setting. However, if you run into a close friend you haven't seen in a while, a more casual greeting like a casual greeting would be, "Hey, what's up?" It would be more natural. Okay? It would be a good option, as we saw in our casual catch-up dialogue in one of our previous meetings. A simple hello is always safe choice if you are like unsure of the situation. So choosing the right phrase for the right situation shows that you understand is the social context that you are in. And of course, a good rule for group situations is to include everyone if you are in a group. If you are walking into a new classroom or a meeting, it is polite to greet the whole group. Sorry for that. No, you try to greet the whole group, not just one or two persons that you know. This makes everyone feel acknowledged and included. You can simply say something like, "Hello, everyone," or "Good evening, everyone." This is just a small action, but it makes a big difference in making people feel comfortable and welcome. Let's look at simple example that uses all these ideas. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Mia." Now, this short sentence, it is a perfect demonstration of this rule. The phrase "good evening," it is a natural and polite greeting for this time of day. By adding the word everyone, she makes sure that the whole group is included, and by immediately saying "I'm Mia," she is smoothly getting ready for the next step, which is to introduce herself. So it's polite, it's clear, and makes the person sound very confident right from the start. Here's another example in a professional setting. Maybe imagine you are joining a new project team for the first time. So as you walk into the room, you could say, "Hi everyone, thanks for having me. My name is David. My name is Jake. My name is Mia." Okay, this is friendly, this is inclusive and professional. It is a great way to start a conversation in a group that you will be spending a lot of time with. Remember, a greeting is the first step. It opens the door for conversation to begin. It's the small, brave action that follows being friendly and approachable. So don't be shy, just say hello. So once you've been friendly and greeted someone, what is the next logical step in a conversation? You need to tell them who you are. This brings us to the next important rule from our list: to introduce yourself clearly. We will talk about that next. Okay, here. So we've covered the first two steps already: being friendly and approachable and starting with a greeting. The next step and a very important rule for making a good first impression is to introduce yourself clearly. This is how you turn a simple greeting into a real connection. Okay, let's talk about how to do this effectively. First, it is a great idea to use your name and of course add one small detail. Okay, just saying your name is good, of course that's already good in itself, but adding one small detail makes the conversation much easier to continue. It will give your listener a hook to really continue the conversation that you are having. This little piece of extra information gives the other person something to ask you about, which of course helps to keep the conversation from stopping right after the greeting. So think of it as a small gift to the other person that you are meeting. You are giving them the topic to engage with. Okay? We saw this in our at school orientation dialogue. Lara didn't just say, "I'm Lara." I am so sorry for that. Let me continue. Okay? Remember Lara, right? In our previous meeting yesterday, she did not just say, "I'm Lara." She also gave us a detail about their shared situation by saying, "I think we're in the same course." So this small detail made it very easy for Jonas to respond and ask his own question must come to a it's not really the situation, or this is not talked about yesterday in our previous meeting, but one of our previous meetings last week. Okay, about the Lara and Jonas, conversation or dialogue. Okay, Second, we have here, it's very important to speak clearly and avoid nicknames in formal settings. Now, your name is your first impression. You want to say it clearly and loudly enough for the other person to hear you. So, especially if there is noise around. Speaking clearly also shows that you are confident, that you should also think about the situation. If you are at a formal work meeting or a professional conference, it's best to use your full proper name. For example, if your name is Maria Elizabeth, it might be better to say I'm Maria in a professional setting rather than I'm Beth, a nickname. The rule of thumb is to save your nicknames for when you are talking to friends or in more casual situations. This just show respect for the setting and for the person that you are meeting. Now remember, in our food stall dialogue, Anne and Jake both used their clear first names to introduce themselves, which is perfect for for a new encounter. And now let's look at the example that combines these ideas. Here we have this line. Hi, I'm Paolo. I just transferred here from Cebu. Now the phrase, hi, I'm Paolo, it is clear and simple. And of course, the small detail, I just transferred here from Cebu, is a perfect conversation starter. The other person could easily ask, oh, from Cebu, how do you like it here so far? Or, what made you transfer to the city? Something like that. Okay? This only shows how a small detail can create a natural bridge for a longer conversation. Now, an introduction with a small detail is much more memorable than just a name. It helps a person remember you as Paulo from Cebu instead of just Paulo. Okay? Here's another example in a professional context. You can imagine yourself, you are like at a business conference. You could say, hello, my name is Anna. I work in marketing. So this is a clear professional introduction that gives the person a small detail about your work. It is polite and it gives them an easy way to ask more questions. It follows the same rule, name plus one small detail. This one, okay? Name plus one small detail. A detail that is of course relevant too. So remember to speak clearly, and if you can, give one small piece of information with your name. So this makes it easy for the other person to really remember you and to continue talking. It is just an act of confidence and also a polite way to help the other person. Okay? All right. Now, once you've introduced yourself and given a small detail to the other person, what is the most important thing to do next? That is, a good conversation is not just about you, so it's about the other person too. So our next important rule is to show interest in the other person. We will talk about that next. Okay? All right. Here is the slide. We've already covered the first three steps to a good conversation. What are they? Being friendly and approachable, starting with a greeting, and introducing yourself. Okay? Next step is a very important rule for good conversation, which is to show interest in the other person. Now, a good conversation is not a monologue where you just talk about yourself. It's like a game of catch. One person throws a ball by saying something, and the other person catches it and throws it back by saying something in response. It's a two-way street. Remember that. And of course, showing interest is how you keep the ball in the air. If you don't show interest, the ball drops and the conversation ends. This rule is what moves a conversation from being a simple exchange of words to a real connection between people. Okay? First, here you want to ask open-ended questions. Now, what is an open-ended questions? These are questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Okay? It just, these questions, it requires the person to give a little more information, which helps the conversation continue naturally. So a close-ended question would be something like, it would be something like asking, are you new here? To which the person could just say yes. Okay? A much better open-ended question would be something like, What brings you here? This invites a longer, more detailed answer. We saw a great example of this in our workplace dialogue. Person B showed interest by asking, "How was your weekend?" That's an open-ended question that makes it easy for person A to respond with a little detail. And then the person A responded like pretty relaxing things. This kind of question is a great tool for starting a real dialogue. Okay. The second point here is to actively listen and respond naturally. Active listening means that you are not just hearing the words, but you are also paying attention to their meaning so you can respond in a thoughtful way. Okay? This shows that the other person you care about what they are saying, and of course, um how do you call that? And also you can have their full attention. That's just it. It is what makes the conversation feel natural and not like you are just waiting for your turn to speak. Okay, in our school orientation dialogue, if you remember it, Lara said she thought they were in the same course. Jonas then actively listened and responded naturally by asking a specific question. And what is it? It is he asked mass comm 2 or mass communication 2. His question is his question it provided or it shows that he was paying attention and was interested in learning more. So he didn't just move on to a different topic. So let's look up at the example phrase that we have here. Now this is a line. You said you just arrived. Where from? Okay, there's a question here. Let me put it here. Okay. All right. Where from? This is a perfect follow-up question because it refers back to something the person just said. It connects directly to the example we used for the last rule. Hi, I'm Paolo. I just transferred here from Cebu. Now, when Paolo gives that detail about Cebu, it is an invitation for you to show interest by asking a question like, oh, from Cebu? How do you like it here so far? Or what made you want to move? This shows you that you are listening and that you want to hear more of their story. Okay? So this rule is about turning the focus away from yourself and into the other person. And by asking good open-ended questions, we have here open-ended questions, and truly listening to the answers of the person that you're talking to, it shows that you see them and that you care about what they have to say to you. This is what makes a conversation feel balanced and truly engaging for both people. Okay, it's not just a conversational trick, it's a way to build genuine human connection. Okay, now this also leads us perfectly to our next rule. Keep it simple and natural, because when you ask simple questions and listen well, a conversation naturally feels simple and easy. We will talk about that here. Okay, but before that, let me just check my screen. Okay, I think this is, wait for a moment. Let me fix that quickly. All right, I think everything's good. Let's continue with keep it simple and natural. Okay, now this rule is all about being yourself, not trying too hard to sound like someone you are not. When you are learning a new language, sometimes we can get focused on using the right grammar or big words that we sound like stiff or awkward. Now this rule reminds us that simple and natural is always better. Okay, now our first point here is to use everyday language and tone. Now, everyday language means the words and phrases that people use every day. Those words or phrases that are not big, that are not complicated words from a dictionary. You can think about the dialogues we have already studied in our casual catch-up dialogue. The greetings are simple and natural, like "Hey, what's up?" And of course, the response is just as simple, not much, just "Get here." Now, this is how real people talk. In our food stall dialogue, the conversation is also very simple. You start with a basic question about the line, like, is the line for jacket potatoes? Is this the line for jacket potatoes? Something like that. So the tone of your voice, it should also be like your normal everyday tone. You should sound relaxed and comfortable, not like you're giving a formal speech. Okay? The second point is to avoid sounding rehearsed or stiff. Now, when you sound rehearsed, it means that you sound like you are practicing or you are reading from a book. This can make the other person feel a little uncomfortable, because the goal here is to have a real human connection, not to give a perfect performance. Okay, making a mistake is a perfectly natural part of learning. It is much better. Sorry for that. It is much better. Okay, now that's a mistake. That's natural in a conversation. It is part of learning. Anyway, it is much better to say a simple, slightly imperfected sentence than, a complex, stiff one that you have already memorized. So focus on the message you want to send and the person that you are talking to. And of course, the words will come more easily. Okay? Now, let's look at the great example that we have here for a moment. Okay? Everything's good. Great example. This line. This room is super cold, huh? This is a simple and natural way to start a conversation. Okay? Why is this effective? Because it is about a shared observation. You and the other person are both in the same room, so you can both understand and relate to the feeling of being cold. Now, the word "huh" at the end is a way to invite a simple agreement or a small comment, which of course keeps the pressure low. You're not asking a difficult question, you are just making an observation. Now, this is very similar to our food stall dialogue, which also started with a question about a shared situation. Okay, here are some other examples. I have not included it here, but let me just share it. These are just natural conversation starters. You can talk about the weather. Okay, maybe you can say, "Wow, it's really raining outside, isn't it?" So you can say that. "Wow, it's really raining outside, isn't it?" You can make a comment also about something you are both seeing, like, "That's a nice phone case. Where did you get it?" Or "I really like the music they are playing here." So the goal is just to start with something that is low risk, something that is easy to talk about, and of course relevant to the moment that you are in. So this rule is about being authentic. It's about letting go of the fear of making a mistake and just being yourself. When you keep your conversation simple and natural, you make the other person feel more comfortable, and that is what leads to a real and enjoyable chat. Okay? And of course, this leads us to our next rule from our list: knowing when to end the conversation. Because sometimes a simple, natural conversation should just be a quick, pleasant chat and not a long talk. So that is why we need to know when to end the conversation. Okay, we've already had a really thorough discussion on how to start a conversation and how to keep it going in a simple and natural way. We've talked about the importance of being friendly and approachable, starting with greeting, introducing yourself clearly with small detail, and showing interest in the other person with open-ended questions, and of course, finally, keeping it all simple and natural. But just like any other journey, a conversation needs a good ending. Knowing how to end a conversation is a skill that is just as important as knowing how to start one. Okay, this brings us to the very crucial rule from our list: knowing when to end the conversation. Know when to end the conversation. You might think that ending a conversation is rude, but that's a common misunderstanding. In reality, doing it correctly shows a lot of respect for the other person and their time. It prevents awkward silences, and then it leaves both people with a good feeling about the chat. So a good ending leaves a good impression, just like a good start does. Okay. Now, the first and perhaps most common way to end a conversation is to use kind closing phrases. You can think of these phrases as gentle signal that you are wrapping things up. They are polite, they're positive, and that they show that you enjoy the time you spend talking. They prevent an abrupt or a sudden ending, which can be jarring. Okay, there are just many different ways to do this depending on the situation. For a semi-formal setting, phrases like "It was great chatting with you" or "It was nice talking with you" are perfect. They're perfect. They are professional but still warm. For a more casual setting, a simple "Great to see you" or "Catch you later" it also works really well. You can even combine them. For example, at the end of our dialogue at the food stall, after Jake and Anne have introduced themselves, they could have easily ended the conversation by saying, "It was nice meeting you, Anne, and you too, Jake. Have a good day." Okay? These phrases are warm, they are welcoming, and that they leave a good impression because the tone you use when you say these phrases is also very important. It shows that you should be friendly and match the tone of the conversation. So, smiling and maintaining eye contact while you say these things reinforces the positive message and, of course, shows sincerity. Okay? The second important point is to, if needed, you can exit politely. Sometimes you have a genuine reason to leave. Maybe you have a meeting to go to, a class is about to start, or you just need to get back to what you were doing. Now, the key here is to state your reason politely without making the other person feel like you are escaping from them. This is where you can use phrases like I need to head out now, but let's catch up again. Okay, that is also that is already good. Or you can say also, "I have to get ready for the meeting," or "I'm sorry to cut this short, but I need to go." That phrase or these phrases is already a good way to exit politely. That phrase, "but let's catch up again," and where did I mention it? I think in the first way, how do you call that? Yeah, this one. "But let's catch up again." Okay, I need to head out now, but let's catch up again. Now, that the one that I highlighted, "but let's catch up again," it's a great way to show that you are not ending the conversation because you don't like talking to them, but because you genuinely have another commitment. It's a promise to reconnect, basically, which is a very friendly thing to do. Okay? So let's think about this in a new scenario. Imagine you're at school orientation and you start chatting with a new classmate. The conversation is going well, but you remember you have to go find a specific room before your next class starts. You could say to them, "Oh, sorry to cut you off, but I need to go find my next class now. It was really nice meeting you. I'll see you around." Something like that. This is just much better than just saying, "I have to go now," and walking away. It is respectful and it gives a reason for your departure. Okay? The key is just to be honest, but gentle, making sure that the other person feels that they are important, but your commitment is also important. Okay? The last point, which is more of a tip, is to not overstay. Be respectful to the moment. What does it mean to overstay? It means that staying in a conversation for far too long, even when the other person is ready to move on. How can you tell if someone is ready to move on? Well, this is where you have to practice reading nonverbal cues and social signs. You can look for some simple clues. The other person might start looking at their watch, or they might, look around the room. For other people, they might also shift their weight from one foot to the other or take a small step backward. Verbally, they might give shorter and shorter answers, stop asking questions, or they start using one word replies like "yeah" or "okay." So when you see these signals, it's a good idea to start using one of those kind closing phrases. For example, if you are at a seminar and you've been chatting with someone during a break and you notice they start looking toward the refreshments table or they're walking back to their seat, that's a polite what do you call that? It's a polite signal that the conversation is over for now. So this shows social awareness and respect for their time. So ending a conversation is not about being rude. It's a sign of politeness and social awareness. A good ending can leave a better and more lasting impression than a long, awkward conversation. It shows that you respect the other person and their time. Okay? Of course, this idea of respecting the situation to and the other person, it brings us to our next important rule from our list, which is adapt to the setting. Because how we end a conversation at a food stall is very different from how we end one on the phone or at a formal meeting. So we will cover that next. But before that, let me just, hydrate myself because my throat is really dry for a moment. All right, I'm back. Thank you for that. Thank you for waiting. Anyway, let's continue with this one. Adapt to the setting because again, um, there are different settings or contexts that you will be in where you converse with someone. Okay? We have covered so much ground already in our discussions on conversational English. So we are going to have this rule next. Of course, it comes in, and this rule is all about knowing your audience and your environment. So the way you talk to a friend at a casual party is completely different from the way you talk to a potential employer at the job fair. Okay? Using the wrong approach can make you seem inappropriate or even rude, or even if you are using all the right words. Now, the first point here is to match your tone to the context, like party versus job fair. Let's break this down by looking at two different scenarios, okay? But before that, let me check my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. Now imagine you are at the job fair. The atmosphere is professional. It is serious and a little bit formal. People are trying to make a good impression. So how we adapt? In greetings, you wouldn't walk up to a company representative and just say, "Hey, what's up?" No, that is far too casual for this setting. Instead, you would use standard polite greeting like good morning or hello. A greeting like good afternoon is also a great choice if it's afternoon, of course. And aside from greetings, introductions, when you introduce yourself, you'd also use a more formal approach. Instead of just saying, "Hi, I'm Paolo. I just transferred here from Cebu." You might say something like, "Hello, my name is Maria. I am a recent graduate with a degree in communications and I'm very interested in the marketing opportunities at your company." That sounds complicated, but it works well in formal setting. Okay? This introduction is just clear. It is for professional. It gets straight to the point. Of course, body language is also important. Your body language should also be formal and approachable, but not too relaxed. You wouldn't stand up straight, offer a firm handshake and maintain friendly eye contact without fidgeting or crossing your arms. You are showing that you are serious and that you are respectful. Okay? Aside from those, it's also important to note the conversational style. Your questions would be direct and professional, like, "Can you tell me more about the entry level positions available?" Or, "What kind of skills are you looking for in the candidate?" Okay, that's on job fair. Now let's contrast that with a party. The atmosphere is relaxed, it is fun and casual. When greeting, a friendly casual greeting like "Hey" or "Hi there" is perfect. You may also hear "Hey, what's up?" "Hey, what's up?" or "How's it going?" These casual greetings fit the mood and make you seem approachable. Approachable. So in the casual catch-up dialogue that we had, the greetings are exactly this. "Hey, what's up?" Okay? Introductions. Your introduction can be more relaxed too. You might say, "Hi, I'm Anna," or "I'm a friend of the host. How do you know them?" This also shows interest in the other person, which is a great way to start a conversation. You can also refer to our at school orientation dialogue where the introductions were simple and natural. Um, yeah, simple and natural. So aside from introductions, aside from verbal, there's also body language, just like the other one. Your body language would be much more relaxed and open. You might be holding a drink, gesturing with your hands, and of course, your posture would be less rigid. Okay? All right. Conversational style, I've also mentioned that one earlier, so let's include that one. Now, here, your questions would be light and friendly. For example, this music is great. Have you been to a party here before? Or what are you drinking? That looks good. Now, the second point of this rule is to speak louder and clearer in noisy areas. This is a very practical piece of advice. You can think about the food stall dialogue. Imagine that stall is busy and noisy. If you and the other person speak in a quiet library level voice, you won't be able to hear each other. You would need to project your voice, speak a little louder, and make sure you are enunciating your words clearly so the other person can understand you. On the other hand, if you are in a quiet library or a formal office, speaking too loudly would be very rude. Okay? You have to adjust your volume and clarity for the environment you are in. Now, the final tip here is to watch others' behavior to gauge formality. This is a great tip for when you are in a new environment and you're not sure what is appropriate. For example, you will walk into a meeting for new club before you could go up to um, someone and of course start talking. So you can take a moment to observe. And as people like talking casually and laughing, you can also note that. Or are they quietly standing and looking at their phones? Are they greeting each other with little hugs or with professional handshakes? By observing what the other people are doing, you can learn the rules of that specific setting. And of course, adapt your own behavior to fit in naturally. Okay, this is just a very smart way to show that you are respectful to the situation and people in it. Okay, so adapting the setting is not just about using the right words here, it's about being aware of the social context around you. It's about knowing when to be formal and when to be casual, when to speak loudly and when to be quiet, and how to read the room so you can have a natural and successful conversation no matter where you are. Now, this skill ties all of our other rules together and helps us be confident and socially intelligent communicators. Okay, all right. This leads after this one is practice active listening. After adapting to the setting, it's very important that we also practice active listening, because no matter what the setting is, good conversation relies on a good listener. Okay, we'll dive into that next. All right, everyone. So we have been on a long and interesting journey throughout the rules of conversational English. We started by learning to be friendly and approachable, and then how to start a conversation with a greeting and introduce yourselves clearly. We talked about showing interest in others by asking open-ended questions, keeping our language simple and natural. So knowing when to end a conversation politely, and finally adapting our tone and style to the song. Okay? All these rules are fantastic foundation, but they all depend on one single crucial skill. The skill is, the glue that holds a conversation together. It's about more than just talking. It's about listening, something like that. Okay, so that brings us to our next very important rule from the list: practice active listening. Okay, all right. Now here, active listening is a lot more than just hearing the words that someone says. It's about fully concentrating on what is being said, understanding the message, and then showing the speaker that you have understood them. Think of it like a game of tennis. You hit the ball over the net, but you have to be ready to hit it back. A conversation is a two-way purple street. Purple? Where did I get that? It is a two-way street. Okay? Got that? Okay, why did I say that? But yeah, a conversation is a two-way street. And of course, active listening is how you show you are on the street. Okay, ready to participate. All right. Now, the first way to practice this is to show interest with nods and brief replies. While the other person is talking, you can like nod or react. Okay, you can say, "Oh wow," or depende. It depends on the situation that you are in. You can also say, "I see." A small agreement. Now, these small, simple gestures are already incredibly powerful. They are nonverbal cues that tell the person speaking, I am here with you, I am paying attention. Imagine you are telling a friend about a great movie you saw over the weekend. If they are just sitting there silently, you might start to feel like they are bored or not interested in the conversation that you are having. But if they nod along and say things like, oh, wow, or I see every now and then of course you feel encouraged to keep talking. You feel heard and valued. Now, these brief replies are a form of conversational encouragement. Some good ones to remember are for showing you understand, like I see, or right, or got it. These are just simple ways to acknowledge you are following along. Another is for showing you are surprised or interested. Like, oh wow, or that's amazing, or no way. These show genuine emotion and make the speaker feel like their story is exciting. Okay? Another one is for encouraging them to continue. Like, and then what happened? Or tell me more about that. These are just a great way to signal that you want to hear the rest of the story without any kind of interruption. Okay? We talked about before being friendly and approachable. This is where that rule and active listening work together perfectly. Your body language, like smiling and maintaining open posture, and your eye contact are all part of, how do you call that? They are all part of active listening. They are visual cues that reinforce your verbal ones and tell the other person, I am fully present and engaged in this conversation with you. Okay? The second way the second key to achieve listening is to avoid distractions or echo key points. Distractions are the enemy of good conversation. This means putting your phone away, not looking around the room, and focusing on the other person in front of you. So when you are distracted, it sends a clear message to the other person that they are not important, and that it is a very quick way to end a conversation. So if you are talking with someone during a break at a seminar, or don't or any kind of situation, don't look at your phone. Okay, give them your full attention as much as possible so that they feel heard and valued. And then there's also echoing. Okay, echo key points. What does this mean? This is an echoing technique, which is a fantastic way to show that you were not just hearing the words, but you were truly listening. Echoing is when you repeat or summarize a key part of what the other person said in your own words. Okay, so you teach biology, right? That's that's the first part of our example. Okay, so you teach biology, right? That's amazing. The first part, so you teach biology, right, is the echo. It confirms that you heard and understood them clearly. So the second part, it's amazing. It's a brief, encouraging reply, which is talked about. It shows your interest. It shows that your interest it makes them feel good about what they're saying. Okay. All right. So you teach biology, right? That's amazing. So active listening is the full in the foundation is the foundation. I'm sorry. It is the foundation for almost every other conversation we have discussed. You can ask a good question. You can respond in a simple and natural way if you are not implying like you don't have any idea about this at all. You can respond in a simple and natural way if you are not paying attention to what the other person just said to you. So it's the core of conversation. Basically, it's what makes the other person feel valued, and it is what makes a conversation truly meaningful. So this is a skill that takes practice, but it will make you much more confident and respected conversationalist. Okay, and as we will see, this skill is even more important when we start thinking about our next rule from our list, which is be mindful of cultural differences, because how we show that we are actively listening can be different in various cultures. Okay, we'll get it to that next. All right. Okay, all right, everyone, so we have just finished talking about the heart of a good conversation, active listening. We learned that it's not enough to hear just the words. We must truly listen and show that we understand. Now we're going to have to move on to a rule that takes everything learned, from greetings to tone, and adds a final layer of scope, you know, of sophistication and respect. This rule is about being globally aware communicator, and it is rule number 9 on our list. Okay, be mindful of cultural differences. Now, this rule is so important because it reminds us that we will have a set of general rules. The world is full of different people with different ways of communicating. Being mindful of these differences show that a high level of respect and social intelligence. It's not about memorizing every single custom to every single culture, which is impossible. It's about having an open mindset and willingness to learn. Okay? All right. The first and most fundamental point of this rule is to learn local greetings and customs. Greetings are often the first thing we do in conversation, so getting them right can see a good tone, set a good tone, and make a great first impression. Okay, we have already talked about the difference between a polite greeting like good morning and casual one like hey, what's up. So what we need to realize is that the choice between these can be very natural or cultural. For example, in many Asian countries, it is very important to use polite greetings, especially when talking to people older than you. Okay, using a casual greeting like hey might be seen as good, as respectful, something like that. So the physical part of greeting is also very important. Okay, in many Western countries, a firm handshake is a way to stand. It's a way to, how do you call that? A handshake that is a standard way to greet someone, especially in professional setting like the job fair. However, in how do you call that? In other cultures, a handshake might be different, softer, or not done at all, especially between different genders. In some cultures, in a slightly bow might be the most appropriate greeting or a certain hand gesture. Okay, this is a perfect example of why our rule to adapt the setting is so important. Okay, now from my own background here in the Philippines, for example, a great example of how do you call that, of a cultural greeting is the manopo, right? Well, that's on our that's from my background here in the Philippines. It is a beautiful gesture of respect where a person takes the hand of an elder and touches it to their forehead. We don't expect a foreigner to do this, but being aware of it and what it means shows a lot of respect for our culture. So if you're traveling or meeting someone from a different country, taking a little bit of time to learn about their greetings and customs is a wonderful gesture. So beyond greetings, other customs are also important. For example, personal space, the comfortable distance. Okay, these are the distance between two people. It can vary a lot. In some cultures, people stand very close to each other when they talk, and in others, they prefer more distance. Also, we talked about using friendly eye contact as part of being friendly and approachable. Okay, but in some kind of cultures, especially when you're speaking to someone or or in a position of authority, too much like direct eye contact can be seen as a sign of disrespect. It's a subtle but important difference. How do you call that? It's different, important difference. Sorry for that. So again, it is what did I mention earlier? It is a subtle but important difference that we should be aware of. Okay, this brings us to the second point. How do you call that? Oh, I'm still in be mindful of cultural differences. Okay. Our second point is ask politely if unsure. Like, is it okay if I shake hands? I want to really stress that it is completely okay not to know everything about every culture. It's okay. It's totally fine. It is better to be humble and show that you're willing to learn than to make a mistake and accidentally offend someone, okay? So asking a question like, is it okay if I shake hands? It is a perfect way to do this. You're showing that you are being thoughtful and that you are being respectful. You can also use phrases like, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the customs here. Could you show me what to do? People are almost always happy to share their customs with you, and it can even be a great way to start a conversation, okay? Sorry for that. Sorry for that. Okay? Of course, making the connection on a deeper level. Now, finally, the tip on the slide is so important. Avoid jokes or slang that might confuse or offend the other person. Humor is very deeply rooted in the culture, and a joke that is funny in one culture can be completely confusing or even offensive in another. So, slang is also very specific to a certain place of or group or people. For example, some common slang words here in my place in our country, the Philippines, might not be understood at all in the United States and vice versa, okay? This is why our rule is to keep it simple and natural in a great way to avoid this, what do you call that? To avoid, um, to avoid pitfalls, no, any kind of pitfalls. So by using simple everyday language, you are much less likely to cause confusion or accidentally say something that can be taken the wrong way. It's always safer to stick to simple, okay? Simple, clear language, and until you know someone well and understand their sense of humor and cultural context, okay? All right. So being mindful of cultural differences is about being a respectful and empathetic communicator. It shows that you will see the other person as an individual with their own background and customs. This skill ties everything we have learned together because it reminds us that all conversational rules must be applied with care and consideration. Okay? All right. That is for being mindful of cultural differences. Rule number 9, meaning that the next one is our last rule, which is on stay positive and confident. So we have reached the last rule in our list, and I truly believe this is the most important one. Now we have talked about all the technical parts of conversation, from being friendly to knowing when to end the conversation, and even how to be mindful of cultural differences, right? We've talked about that, right? Okay. Now these are just great rules to have, but a tool is not only is it is only useful when you have like the confidence to use it. So the first final rule is, how do you call that? These are all the great tools to have, okay? But a tool is only useful if you have the confidence to use it, okay? This is the final rule, engine that drives everything else. It is to stay positive and confident. So you can know all the rules in the world, but if you are too nervous or worried to speak, none of them will matter. So staying positive and confident is the key to putting all these rules into practice. It is about having a mindset that says, I can do this. It's okay if I make a mistake. I am going to try. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. All right. Okay. Now the first point that we have here is to use uplifting body language and tone. So we actually started with this idea on our very first rule, be friendly and approachable. Okay, let me go back to that one. All right. No, not that one. Okay, be friendly and approachable. So we talked about how smiling and maintaining open body language are the first steps to make, how do you call that? To make to make someone feel comfortable talking to you. Basically, this is not just about being friendly to others. It is also about being friendly to yourself, because when you stand up straight and then smile and then look at the other person you're talking to, you are sending a message to yourself that you are confident and comfortable. Okay, think about the difference. When you are nervous, you might fidget, look at the floor, or how do you call it? Cross your arms. So this makes it hard to start a conversation with a confident greeting. So you might mumble or speak in a tone that is not warm and friendly. On the other hand, if you stand tall, like smile and speaking clear and more warm tone, I'm sorry, the other person will immediately feel more comfortable and more willing to talk to you. So this positive body language and tone it is a signal to everyone, including yourself, that you are ready and willing to connect. Okay. Now, in our example of bumping into someone, the interaction flows much better if your approach or if you approach it with a confident and positive demeanor. Okay? All right. Now, the second and perhaps most freeing point on this slide is to don't. Oh, let me go back with the slide. Is to don't worry about perfection, just try. This is the biggest hurdle for many language learners, and for good reason. We often feel like we have to get our grammar exactly right, use the perfect vocabulary, what do you call it, pronounce every word flawless, like name. It is also to connect with other, what do you call that, like we often feel like we have to get our grammar exactly right here, so you can use the perfect vocabulary or pronounce every word flawlessly. But the truth is that nobody expects you to be perfect. So the goal of conversation isn't going to be a flawless speaker. It is to connect with another human being. So this is where our rule to keep it simple and natural becomes so important. Let me go back to that one. Keep it simple and natural. It becomes so important. You don't have to use complex sentences or academic vocabulary. So using everyday language and tone is already how do you call it? It's already a great way to avoid sounding rehearsed or stiff. It's a way to let go of the pressure to be perfect. Remember that example, the room is super cold, huh? It's a simple, natural sentence that gets the chat started. Because it comes from a place of not worrying about perfection. It is just an honest observation. Our lesson goes from the very beginning to this one, basic greetings and introduction phrases, and to respond politely and naturally. It is a little bit better for the next one, okay? All right. Now, this is why our slide offers a great mantra to remember. Connection matters than grammar. This phrase was a powerful reminder of the true purpose of conversation. And the goal is not to be a walking textbook. The goal is to build a bridge between you and the other person. So a bridge that has a few cracks, maybe a grammar mistake here or pronunciation error there. Okay? All right. It is still a functional bridge that allows you to like cross over and connect with someone. Okay, the conversation at the food stall, like the casual catch up too, and especially the phone call, they all work because the people are focused on connecting. So to summarize everything we have learned today, the key to great conversational English is confidence, because this is the last rule. Okay, this is already the 10th rule. This one, no, not this one, but this one. Stay positive and confident. That is also the last rule in conversational English. Of course, it is the confidence here. Stay positive, confident. It's the confidence that gives you the courage to show interest, to keep it simple, to know when and how to end a conversation. So especially to adapt the setting, to practice active listening, and to be mindful of cultural differences by being willing to ask when you are unsure. Okay, I hope that this lecture has given you the tools, and more importantly, this mindset to approach conversations with a positive and confident attitude. Just go out there and try, because again, the more you do, the easier it will become. Okay, again, this is the last rule for conversational English. Let's go back to this one. So we've already tackled about all these rules, 10 rules. We have reached the end of our lecture. We have covered a lot of ground, and I am really glad we were able to go through all 10 of our rules for conversational English. I want to take a few moments to review everything and see how all these pieces fit together. Now think of these rules as not as strict rules, but a conversational toolkit. Okay. The first five rules are really about how to start a conversation. Okay, and keep it going smoothly. It all begins with rule number one: be friendly and approachable. We learned that smiling and having open body language makes other people feel comfortable and shows that you are ready to talk to. Okay, this is, how do you call that? This leads right into our rule number two: start with a greeting, which can be polite and formal, like good morning, or friendly casual, like hey, how's it going, hey, what's up. So from there you go to rule number three, which is introduce yourself clearly by using your name plus a small detail. That's the, that's the formula: name plus small detail, like in our at school orientation dialogue. Once the conversation has started, rule number four: show interest in the other person is the key to keep it going. This is where you ask open-ended questions like what brings you here, and of course you try to actively listen to their response, of course. Okay. Finally, all of these steps should be done in a way that is rule number five. Keep it simple and natural. The goal is to use everyday language and tone so you don't sound rehearsed or stiff. Now, the last five rules are a bit more advanced and add a layer of the respect and social awareness to your conversations. First, we talked about rule number six: know when to end a conversation. This is about being respectful of the other person's time. You can ask, or you can use kind closing phrases like great chatting with you, or politely excuse yourself when needed. Okay, then we moved on to rule number seven, which is adapt to the setting. This taught us that we need to adjust our tone and volume depending on where we are, whether it's a quiet office or if a noisy food stall. Okay. After that, we learned rule number eight: practice active listening. This is a crucial skill. We show we are listening by nodding, by giving brief replies like oh wow, and by echoing back what we hear, like in the example. So you teach biology, right? Something like that. Okay. Rule number nine: be mindful of the cultural differences. Okay. Be mindful of the cultural differences. It is a very important rule for showing respect and avoiding misunderstandings. So this rule reminds us to be aware that greetings and customs can be different, and that it's okay if you would like ask politely if you are unsure. Okay. And of course, that brings us to our final and most important rule of all. Rule number 10: stay positive and confident. This rule is the mindset that makes everything else possible. It's about using uplifting body language and tone and not worrying about being perfect. Okay. The most important thing to remember is our mantra: connection matters more than grammar. Now, by putting all these rules together, you are well on your way to achieve our lesson goals. You can now use basic greetings and introduction phrases, respond politely and naturally to questions, and introduce yourself confidently. Thank you all for your attention, and I hope you feel more ready to go out there and have some great conversations. Okay? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have reached the end of our lecture series on Conversational English, Lecture 5. I know we've covered a lot of information, from being friendly and approachable to knowing when to end a conversation and everything in between. Now, you've all been given a fantastic toolkit to help you become more confident and effective communicators. Remember, these rules are not meant to to make you feel like you have to be perfect. The most important lesson of all is our last one: stay positive and confident. The real magic happens when you let go of the fear of making mistakes and just, try. It's about being present and focused on the other person, using all these little tools to build a connection. Just remember the mantra: connection matters more than grammar. Okay? A conversation is a bridge between two people, and a bridge with a few cracks is still a strong bridge that gets you to the other side. So I encourage you to try out what we have learned. The next time you see a classmate you didn't know well, try using one of our simple greetings and introduces yourself. Okay, the more you sharpen, the more natural and confident it will become. Okay, now that you are all capable of having wonderful conversations, I know that, and I am excited for you to start doing just that. Thank you all again for your time and participation. You've been a great group. Good night, everyone. Yeah, goodbye, and have a great rest of the night ahead.